Hey everyone, Ryan here at etrailer. Today on our 2017 Ford Explorer, we're going to be showing you how to install the Roadmaster tow bar diode wiring kit. But before we do that, let's just take a minute. We'll check this out and make sure it's going to work for you. So when it comes to diode wiring, what it's going to do is transfer the lighting functions from the back of your motorhome to the back of your Ford, keeping you safe and legal. You'll get your turn signals, your brake lights, and your tail lights. And tow bar wiring is going to be one of the 5 main components that you're going to need to flat tow your vehicle behind your motorhome. The other 4 will be your base plate, your tow bar, your safety cables, and your supplemental braking system. And with the Explorer 2, I like to recommend the automatic battery disconnect switch. Just makes setting everything up a lot easier and straightforward. But speaking of setup, when it comes to picking out wiring, these Roadmaster kits are something that I recommend pretty much all the time. You do a ton of them here. They're super reliable and they just flat out work. And when you're ready to hook up to your coach, you're not going to really have to do anything, right? You'll have a plug that plugs into the front of your vehicle and into the back of the motorhome. And that's really all there is to it. Here's a look at the front and the cable that'll get plugged into the front of your Explorer, and then the other end of the cable will get plugged into your motorhome's trailer wiring connector there. And this is our motorhome today. We usually like to be all hooked up and everything so we can really demonstrate, give you a good idea of what's going on, but bad weather today, so bear with us here. With that said though, there's several different types of this particular kit, and really the main difference between them all is going to be what style of cable that you get, if at all. So the kit that we're using here today comes with your wiring, your diodes, all the little parts and pieces to get it installed, and it'll also come with this type of cable as well as the 6-way round connector plug. And this is a really popular kit. You can use this in just about any situation, especially if your tow bar, that'll connect to the front of your vehicle and to the back of the motorhome, if that doesn't have any channels or anything like that that run along the side of it, that's where you'd want to use something like this. But like I said, it'll work in pretty much any scenario. If your tow bar does have channels in it, all right, like the Roadmaster Falcon, for example, you can get what's called a straight cable or a hybrid cable. So you got them like this that are straight. You can run these through those channels in the tow bar, keep it up off the ground, properly utilize it. Same thing with this hybrid type one. All right, it's mostly straight, and then at the very end here, towards the motorhome side, it'll be coiled. And this one is really long, so if you have a lot of distance between your tow vehicle and your coach, this will probably work out. And then there's also another completely coiled kit, but with this, you have a 7-way for the motorhome side and a 4-way round for the vehicle side. Rarely do these here. My thought is if you're going through the trouble to install everything, you might as well get the 6-way round connector. That'll allow you to maybe set up a charge line or other accessories down the road if you want to. There's a 4-way flat. 4-way flat kit. Again, we rarely do these, but for those of you that might have an older coach or something like that, and this is the only connector and you got on it, that's where this will come into play. Then there's one more, all right, and the last kit I'm talking about, it will not come with any cable nor a connector plug. And the reason for that is some of these more premier type tow bars will come included with those components, like the Roadmaster Nighthawk, for example. It comes with the connector plug, comes with the cable already. So if that's what you plan on doing, or you already have those parts, then that's where that kind of bare bones kit, what I like to call it, would come into play. Other than that, you know, a really reliable kit. Like I said, we do a ton of these things, and they work out pretty well with the Explorer in particular, you know, as far as the fitment and everything like that goes. When it comes to the installation, it's really not too bad. It's more time consuming than anything else. Just having to route wires from the front to the back. You will have to remove your taillights and hook them up back there. So take your time. Should be all right. I'll show you a couple things that I like to do to hopefully make it easier on you. But if this is something you're not comfortable doing, don't have the time or place to work on it, you can always use our dealer locator network, and that can help you find a shop in your neighborhood that can set something like this up for you. But if you're going to do it yourself, hang around. We'll go ahead and get going on it now. To begin our installation, we're going to be here at the front of our Explorer, and I do have the front fascia removed, and that's because we're doing this the same time that we're doing our base plate. Just makes it a lot easier to see and get to, but it can be done with everything put back together. Just might be a little more challenging, but first thing I did was grab our big bundle of wire, and I took one end of it, dropped it right behind our headlight, where it comes out there, and I just loosely have it routed for now along through here over to our connector plug bracket where we're going to get all this set up here. We can grab the rubber dust boot that goes on the back of our 6-way connector. I'm going to slide that on our wiring. Just push it through for now like that. And then we can split the wires, that way they're individual strands. And I like to peel them back, 3 or 4 inches, something like that. And then I always bring them back together and kind of cut that last ½ inch or so off, just in case if we nicked them or anything when we were separating them, we kind of get a fresh start here. And then we're just going to strip each end back about like that. Give all these wires a good twist, that way the strands are nice and tight. End up with a solid connection. All right, now if we grab our 6-way connector, might be a little tricky to see, but they are labeled. So we have TM for taillights, our brown wire will go there. This one here is GD for ground, so the white wire goes there. LT for left turn, yellow wire plugs into there. RT for right turn, so the green wire goes to it. Now it'll also be a good time too if you're doing a battery charge line kit. Be a great time to install that too because it hooks up to the back of this, already in here. If you are doing a charge line, you'd hook that up to the middle terminal 99% of the time. But what you want to do, take a small screwdriver and back that set screw out almost all the way. Take the appropriate wire, put that into the end of it, and see mine, I even strip back a little long. I want all that wire to be in the terminal like that. Let's come back and snug it down. And I'll just continue to work my way around here until we have them all hooked up. Here's what the back of our connector plug looks like once I have all the diode wires hooked up. Really nothing to it. And something I recommend doing is just taking some silicone and covering up the terminals. That'll help prevent corrosion and things like that from happening. Blob this up real good on here. Push it through. Get our cap hooked up to it on the back. Just pushes over it. We'll secure the connector plug here. Back up here in the engine compartment now. our wire just runs through here, and we need to find a spot to ground it. So it turns out there's a factory ground right here. So that's what I'm going to utilize. So I'm going to cut our wire to length, and you just want to very carefully cut just that white wire. Again, peel it away from the harness a little bit. And the end that you want to work with is the end that's going down to our connector plug in the front, right? So what I'm going to do, strip that end back, and this is how we're going to make all of our electrical connections, whether it be a ring terminal, a spade terminal, butt connector, what have you. Take the ring terminal there, put it over the bare end of the wire, and crimp it down. Get our other wiring out of the way a little bit here. And then that bolt, that's going to be an 8mm. So you can undo it, put the bolt through it, back through the OEM ground. Just snug this down. And as far as the remaining portion of that white wire, right, this is the end that's just going to nothing other than the very end of our harness. I'm just going to peel this off completely. It'll make it a little easier to route all this stuff towards the back. And we'll probably end up using this white wire a little bit later on. So when you get this removed, definitely hold on to it. And at this point, what we can do is the rest of our harness here is going to have to get routed all the way back towards the taillights. So I'll go ahead, do that now, and then show you the path that I took to get it back there. I got our wiring routed and everything, and what I did, I just took it and dropped it down along the firewall. That way it'll come out on the underside of our vehicle. It's pretty important, especially in this area. There's a lot of hot parts and stuff, so when you're routing anything in general, really, do your best to avoid those hot and moving parts so the wiring don't get damaged. Underneath the vehicle, this is the area where our wiring dropped down from the engine compartment. And every now and again, I just use some zip ties to keep it secure. I have it looping around these factory lines here. And then it's kind of in this little case. You can just kind of tuck it in on the side. That way, we'll utilize what's there for us. Help keep the wire protected. And here's where it comes out. And then I just went up and over the fuel tank where it's going to kind of come out up there. And might be a little tricky to see everything just because there's a lot going on, but make sure you're on top of the subframe, not getting hung up in any moving parts or things like that. Right here, at this point, what I did was I took the green wire and peeled it off of the rest of the harness. And then on the end of that green wire, the very end of it, I took the leftover white wire that we saved and I taped those together. All right, so the green and white one just runs along through here towards the passenger side, on over, and we'll let this hang for now. We'll go ahead and get the driver's side done as well. For the driver's side, the yellow and brown are going to go that way, and so what I did, you know how I taped the white wire to the green one, taking the rest of the harness, I taped it to these and continued along. Get on through here, and I did put a little piece of wire loom right here just because it's kind of close to these HVAC lines. Give it a little extra layer of protection. Where it comes around, I just kind of tucked it up in there, and this is where it drops out. So we'll let this hang for now, and we can work on getting the taillights out. That way we can pull this into position. To get the taillights out, go ahead and open up your rear hatch, and if you look, we'll have this little plastic cover here. There's 2 caps on it. If you take a pick or a little flathead screwdriver, kind of just pry behind them and pop them free. And that'll expose 8mm head screws. So we'll pull them out. We should be able to grab our tail light now. Just lightly work it side to side. You don't want to get too carried away because you'll probably break something. But just a little wiggle room there and pull back on it. That'll release it. And we'll disconnect our wiring now. These are just 1/4 turn light bulbs. And then to get that disconnected, you push down on that center tab, pull it apart. We'll set our light off to the side. Do the same exact thing to get the passenger side one removed. We want to test our wiring now to figure out what circuits we're going to be dealing with. And originally these are just all taped up with electrical tape, keeping them together. I removed that, make it easier to work with. And I checked our signals, but I figure I'd go over how you can do it in case you want to double check yours. So we're looking for the brake light signal as well as a tail light signal. And you can use a test light and turn that function on. So right now we have the tail lights on. You could just carefully test each terminal, see which one has power, right? So in our case, that's the only one that has power, that yellow wire. So we know that's our tail light signal. Then you can turn the taillights off, have someone push the brake pedal down and check the same way. Like I said, I did that already. And the stoplight signal is going to be this beige or light brown colored wire. We can grab those 2 wires now and we're going to cut them in half. And then on each end, all 4 ends, strip those back just like we did earlier. Twist the wire, and you're going to want to crimp on one of these blue spade terminals. Got those ends crimped on, and I came back to and just kind of taped everything up to make it more manageable when we're setting all this up. But your ends closest to the connector plug there, what you want to do is take your diodes and the side of the diode that has a single terminal labeled out. You want to plug that onto those ends. Then you just go color for color, right? So the factory yellow gets plugged back into the factory yellow. Factory beige, same deal. And we can get our new wires pulled up now. Might be kind of tight behind here. So what I think I'm gonna do, I'm gonna use a pull wire. This is a piece of tubing. You can also use a metal coat hanger if you straighten it out, or a thicker piece of wire you got laying around. Whatever really will work. But what I'm trying to do is push this down, that way it'll come out of the bottom. Then we can taper wiring to it, you know, and be able to pull it into position a lot easier. Here's what I did. You know, that pull wire dropping down, tape these wires to it. And hopefully we got enough length here. It feels like they'll just be long enough, which is about right. So I'll separate these ends. And what we're going to do here, the yellow wire, it's going to be the same. You're just going to crimp on a blue terminal on this one, and this yellow wire is going to control our stop and turn. The white and brown wires, however, though, we're going to do something a little different with these. We'll strip both of the ends back. I usually make these a little bit longer, on the longer side too. And that's because we'll twist them, and then we're going to twist the ends together. Get them nice and tight. So more or less what's going on here, the brown wire is our tail light signal, and the white wire, you know, this end runs all the way over to the passenger side, so it's going to supply the passenger side light with the tail light function. Just kind of a jumper wire, if that makes sense. But you'll slide the larger yellow terminal over that and get those crimped down. Where our new wires are going to go, they're going to plug into the last remaining diode. So since the factory yellow is our taillight signal, we'll plug our new brown and white wire into that diode. And since the beige colored wire, factory wire, is going to be for a stop and turn, we'll plug our new yellow wire into it. To secure our diodes, not a ton of room in here. What I've done a lot in the past, never had any issues, is just take off that two-sided sticky tape that comes on these diodes, and I'll just stick them together like this, and we can plug our light back in the opposite way here. Carefully kind of just tuck everything back into position. Make sure we're not going to jam any wires up or anything like that, but it's pretty tight, so work that back into place and resecure our light the opposite way that we took it apart. Over here on the passenger side, we did the exact same thing, more or less. Even the factory wire colors are going to be the same. So of course the factory yellow controls our taillight signal. So I hooked up our new white wire to that diode. And since the factory beige colored wire controls the stop and turn, I hooked up our new green wire to it, stuck them together, and plugged them into our taillight. Now we can go ahead and get this reinstalled. It is a good idea to test the wiring now just to make sure everything's working properly. So I'm plugged into a test box, which is simulating a motorhome. You can plug into your coach, but keep in mind, if your RV has any issues, it might mislead you. And I'm thinking it's something you did on the vehicle side. But with that said, let's test everything out. We'll try out our taillight signal, our left turn signal, our right turn signal, and our brake lights. And that'll finish up our look at and our installation of the Roadmaster Diode wiring kit for towed vehicles on our 2017 Ford Explorer.